some of the work you do is around cloud computing and AI is built on that. How is that a capability that you're making available to brands and businesses to take them forward? And if you have any examples of some of the work happening in that space?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the conversation now is very creative-led from like an example perspective.
Yeah.
So let me go to the cloud marketing sort of sphere, and I'll bring it back to creative as an example.
Yeah.
So if we look at cloud computing and cloud technology, right? Generally, we're defining that as a server base that exists somewhere with some form of functionality or computational power. Now, if you think about the generation of AI tools, products, businesses, all of them are reliant on what they'll call compute. All right, that's why if you bought Nvidia shares a year ago, you'd probably be sitting in a mansion in some lovely place somewhere. But, you know, so what we're finding in marketing and media specifically is cloud technology is basically creating the next generation of ad tech or advertising technology. So what we find is, you know, traditionally we've built a lot of our marketing and media data that we use, our understanding of the customer, all of our strategies, the way that we're planning and buying. And a lot of that has been siloed to the space where we're actually serving advertising or our ad service. So whether that's above the line, below the line, it doesn't actually matter. What it means is our decision making is very siloed to that area. Now, what we're finding with digital transformation and with business is we're starting to see the functionality of marketing, advertising, and media, and of course, the usage of data moving towards cloud environments. And what that essentially means, and you mentioned this earlier, is we can source data from a whole bunch of different places across the company. So we're federating marketing into the business. So that's a big one. And once we have that data in that place, now we can suddenly do a whole bunch more stuff with it before sending it through to the place that we're actually serving ads. And we're seeing a ton of that happening, right? So cloud computing is the next generation of ad tech. I think.
So let me just pause there.
Yeah.
But who's leading that conversation? Is it sitting in the tech CTO division, or is the CMO having that conversation? Who's deciding which tech marketing is using to drive the business?
So this is like a tragedy of the commons concept.
Yeah.
Everyone sees the value, but no one's responsible for it. So I think you're asking a question that is super pertinent to now. But what we're seeing is that there's starting to be an interface between a lot of these general roles. So, you know, a CMO is going to need to talk a lot more of a CTO's language. And the CTO is going to have to do the same thing. I mean, we had a meeting actually just before this with one of the largest insurance providers in South Africa. And just interfacing our conversation with the IT team, we had to bring in an extra individual just to translate for us, essentially. So that's happening. The other thing is a lot of the stuff takes a big investment. So the CMO has also got to start talking the CFO's language, right? And we need to build a net present value of these projects. We have to give an internal rate of return. We have to build it out. So from a responsibility standpoint, if the CMO is really there to focus on the customer and generate value with the customer, I would argue it's the CMO's responsibility. But their role in delivering that value is changing. And I think where the interface, the language they're using, and how they position themselves as a stakeholder in a business is changing.
Are you hearing this in the industry, where CMOs are having this conversation around technology, data?
Absolutely. And on my end, it's definitely a big conversation. But what's also evident is the tension that's there also. Because it's not like a happy kumbaya exco conversation. It's actually a really challenging conversation. And I think because we're navigating this new world, you know, we are still trying to figure it out. I mean, I know a really, really big client currently who, you know, is a big challenge to even get the technology team and the marketing team to even speak in one language. So ideally, they should. I'm not saying that they are currently.
So I think just to pick up on the core thread of conversation we've been having is cloud tech is changing a lot of this stuff. But to this point of AI, you know, AI application in business is either going to create a consumer experience through a product solution, something like that, or it's going to generate efficiency, i.e., can I do something better at a lower cost?
Yeah.
So cloud computing has a lot of native AI application built into it, which is super important. Now, if we had to think about this with AI, and we're talking about creative, so I'm going to just stick to generative AI. So we're creating new things, content, text, videos, images, speech. So I think something we haven't touched on is AI is democratizing what we see as very skilled practices. So, you know, you got a tool called Cody, which is allowing you to speak in normal English language to an application to get it to write code from you. So you can build an entire app by just giving this thing instructions. Crazy. You got Imagine Anything as another example on more of the content generation front. So describe an ad you want to create or an image or change it up or augment it in normal English language and regenerating this content, which otherwise would have been a briefed brainstorm, very manual process. So I think what we're seeing is tasks that come down to skilled individuals like data scientists, creatives, even your sort of media strategists are either being automated or heavily enhanced, to your point. And, you know, that's going to mean a whole lot of things. I'll go back to Artwell's bear analogy. So it's also another way to look at this is everyone who were the fastest runners are suddenly on a level playing field with the slowest runners. Because if I'm not a coder or if I'm not an experienced creative, not everything, but a lot of what was a professional task can now be automated, and it brings me up to a playing field. So there's a net benefit to everyone, but there's now this conversation of great expertise paired with technology and doing amazing things with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the man and machine component that we have. So if we, I'll round up in like 5 seconds. But
no. I'm thinking about your comment about the
but
democratization.
Sylvester mentioned this. You know, at Cannes you mentioned there was Lebanon present. There was a much bigger African presence. Everyone there fundamentally has an amazing story to tell. But if you can use technology to tell that in an incredible, immersive and brand new way, it's still a human-led proponent. But we're using technology to get ourselves sprinting and running even faster and faster.
Yeah, so the democratization makes sense, yeah? So you're opening it up, leveling playing fields. I think it's probably when you talk around photography back in the day, the photographer was also the one developing the film, yeah, and that was a very technical thing. And then the handheld camera came with film, and everybody could take films. But did it take away the art and skill of photography? Yeah. Even now, everybody with a phone can take a picture, and everybody thinks they're a photographer. So I like the piece that you said that it complements, it helps. Yeah. But what challenge does that give creativity in this new space? How does creativity still trump? Technology is going to help, but it's not going to take over creativity. How do you see that playing out, Sylvester?
Can you imagine if Midjourney, if everybody used Midjourney, we're all creating great ads?
Everything looks the
It's
same.
not quite like that. And I think I go back to the point around the fact that in our industry, what keeps us going is exactly the thing that you can't, put in a machine necessarily. It's what we do, and it's what we prompt the machine to do, and the ability for us to still have an eye for good work, to still have an eye for good copy. ChatGPT can write also really crap copy. You still need to be able to look at it and say, can this work for what I need, etc. So what it's going to do, I think, from a creative perspective, is that it's just helping you get there quicker, but you still need to be able to amplify and actually utilize your skill set as an art director or as a copywriter. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's done.